Hi, this is Mrs. Wiederholt. Welcome to my lesson video on creating a perfect square trinomial. This is an introduction to completing the square, which is another method of solving quadratic equations. Now let's get started. Let's do a little review. What does it mean to solve a quadratic equation? It means you are finding the x values, such as the roots, the x-intercepts, which we also call the zeros, and solutions to an equation. Now, what two methods do you already know? At this point, you should know how to solve by graphing and to solve by factoring. So now I'm going to introduce you to a third method, which is called completing the square. And this lesson actually focuses on creating a perfect square trinomial, which is the first step in completing the square. So let's get started. For the binomial ax squared plus bx, you can make it a perfect square trinomial, ax squared plus bx plus c, by dividing b by 2, which would just look like this. It's a fraction, b divided by 2. Squaring it, and then substitute it for c. Now let's look at example number 1. We have x squared minus 8x, where the a value is invisible 1 and the b value is negative 8. Now remember, we pretty much just have two steps. We're going to take the b value, which is negative 8, and we're going to divide it by 2. And negative 8 divided by 2 is negative 4. So that's our first step. The second step is to square it. What is negative 4 squared? Well, negative 4 squared is positive 16. So now that we have our c value, let's rewrite our binomial as a perfect square trinomial. So we have x squared minus 8x plus 16. Now that we have our perfect square trinomial, it is very easy to start to go ahead and factor. So on this one, we could find our factors of 16 that add up to negative 8. And that would be x minus 4 times x minus 4, which could also be written like this: x minus 4 squared. Now, I would like to give you a little shortcut on factoring perfect square trinomials. Do you notice how the two binomials are the same? This will always be true because we created that perfect square for our c value. So all you have to do is take the square root of your first term, which was x squared, so the square root of that is x. Take the square root of your third term, your c term, in this case that is 4, and then use the sign that was in the binomial, and that will become your sign in your factors. Now let's practice with example number 2. This time we have x squared plus 8x for our binomial. So step number 1 is we're going to take our b value, which in this case is positive 8. We're going to divide it by 2. 8 divided by 2 is 4. And so now we're going to square 4. And that would be 16. So now we have our perfect square trinomial, which would be x squared plus 8x plus 16. Now let's factor it using the shortcut. So we can look at the first term, which is x squared, and we can take the square root of that. So that is x. Now we're going to look at the third term, which is the c term, and take the square root of it, which would be 4. So we'll put a 4. And I can go ahead and put my parentheses. And which operation sign are we going to use in the middle? We're going to use the sign that was a part of the original binomial, which was a plus. So now we could write this as x plus 4 times x plus 4, but there's no reason to. We can simply write it as x plus 4 squared. Now remember, We've done 2 examples here, and if you need to, you can always go back. You can pause it after each step, and you can replay it as needed. Well, I hope this lesson video has helped you in understanding how to create a perfect square trinomial, and I look forward to working with you again. Bye-bye.